And
this is a
so,
pantheon of great folks.
so I'm now recording. So Kevin, all the things you said, can you start all over again?
I will. Hey, but listen, everyone, if you want to give a link, if you want to drop a link in here, Mitch, to the live stream on Facebook, I would love to get, and I retweeted it and I shared it over on Facebook. I'd like to get a big audience. So I want to keep going here. So if we go back, Mitch, you and I met, we have actually gone to your house and stayed there in the summers and just love you guys. And Mitch has kind of been in this ed tech game. God, Mitch, how long?
Since basically 2000, 2001.
Yeah. And so, and he's a guy that has his finger on the pulse of trends and knows people like Alefiya, and is the kind of person that would take the time to know someone like Alefiya. Alefiya is this amazing entrepreneur. And I fell in love all over again with her because during the pandemic, when a lot of companies were firing and laying off and Elon Musking everyone, Alefiya held on to her staff and found a way to make it. And that was pure grit. And that was determination, and that was being just who she is. I don't know how to tell you how much I respect that. And she's just great people and does great service for schools. And I'll let her share a little bit about what she sees from what she does. Brad, I have to go back. I don't know where I was, but Brad and his class friend, another teacher, got a hold of me and said, can we have dinner? And I'm thinking, this guy's going to make jerky out of me probably or something, because you never know. And I met him for dinner, and he was just this up and coming guy that was an amazing educator doing very innovative things. And since then, he's just sort of skyrocketed a little bit. Do you want to talk about that just a little bit, Brad?
Yeah, I had just gotten onto, it was 2012, had just gotten onto Twitter and saw who you were, and we followed each other. And I saw on Twitter you were in Michigan, in Flint, Michigan, and I'm in Bloomfield, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit, not far from Flint. And I asked if we wanted to have dinner. I'd love to pick your brain and meet up, and we've been hanging out ever since. So 10 years.
Brad has gone deep into careers and into what technology does in the workplace. And he's not one of those people who vacated the educational space. He has straddled it beautifully and is really about making sure kids are ready for jobs today. AR, AI, if you name a kind of technology that makes learning immersive, Brad is the guru, and he's just made that important to him and to other people. So he's out there being an acknowledged leader in that space. And I'd say, if you don't know each other as I'm talking, we got to weld you all together. Then Randy, I'm out in La Crosse, Wisconsin. La Crosse, I believe it means the bridge or the crossing or something. I'm not sure. He's superintendent of schools at a fairly large school district there. And he's a brave leader because he's all about inclusion. He's all about making sure we're not judging people, and we're keeping our minds open to different kinds of people from different walks of life. No one was doing that at that time. No one was taking a chance at politically being attacked or burned at the stake. And Randy just did it without thinking. And that's who he is. So he's an educational leader that has the fortitude to do the right thing in hard times. And he's retired recently, but he's still one of my top go-tos when it comes to brave leadership, inspired leadership. That's my guy there. Want to say anything to the group, Randy?
Well, thanks, Kevin. That was a nice introduction. Kevin and I first connected probably. I was at the state superintendent conference in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, and Kevin was keynoting, and we had just made a commitment to one-to-one with our students, or at least we're in the process of that. And amongst other strategies that we knew we had to put in place, one thing we felt really important was to get Kevin into the school district so that he can talk to our teachers, talk to our staff about the technology pieces, the resources that are there, and actually the capacity for the technology to work in a real equitable fashion across all of our students. So that's where Kevin and I got connected. And again, he's been in the district, I don't know, we had him over 2 or 3 times every single year thereafter. And he's just been a great friend, and have enjoyed working with Kevin. So Kevin, thanks. Don't know who all pulled this together, but thank you for pulling this together today. This is great.
You know, Mitch said, give me a handful of your best people and welcome to the party, friends. You're them. Yeah.
There's some really cool people in this room right now. Brad, I've known for years. In fact, met him the same way I met you, Kev, supporting him at a conference.
Cool.
I look forward to knowing a whole lot more about you folks and connecting. I definitely have to have a conversation about MadLearn.
Would love to share more, and it's great to meet you all. And Kevin, that was a very heartwarming introduction, and you were about to make me cry, so I'm glad you didn't ask me to speak right just then. Good thinking. But it's really nice to be here. Kevin has been someone that we have loved following and being a part of his journey in one small way or another for, gosh, almost a decade, but I think it's a little less than that. And my first meeting, Kevin, was at an SDAC. No, it wasn't an SDAC conference. I don't know what AESA. And he was keynoting or singing or something. And I was like, Kevin, I need to meet you. I need to be your friend.
She had Brad Waid energy. She was this entrepreneur and she's on fire. And I don't mean sticking a product in your face and saying, bye. She was on fire because of what the product could do. And I just thought, I've never met anybody like her, the firecracker that she is. And as I followed her and the way she brings them, what they do is they turn kids into appreneurs. Is it appreneurs? Where the kids make an app that's supposed to change the world. And there's all this idealism built into their approach. And they go into these schools, these poverty schools, these schools where kids really need advantages, and the kids build an app now, and they've made it easy to drag and drop code. If you want to write code from scratch, you can do that too. Everything is on the table, and they have pre-built it all so that kids come out of this with this thing on their resume. I built an app in 4th grade. My gosh, I mean, how powerful is that? And here's this kid now that feels like they can change the world in 4th grade because of what MadLearn can do. And they go in and they make sure the teachers feel powerful. And they have this big culminating activity where the kids, almost like the Oscars. And the kids have this wonderful, I just can't think of anyone who's operating in a space of empowerment to that level. So I'm just saying, congratulations for all that stuff that you do. Now, I know Mitch, you know, you could have pulled this whole thing together and we had an idea, but let's get to theme of this meeting, because then we can talk to everyone about what they've seen, because this is all about checking the pulse of education right now. Go ahead.
Right.
I think you forgot Butch introductions.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I got her early, and Mitch and Kevin and I were talking.
Yeah. He's, again, a person I met doing tech support at the ICE conference. And just, we hit it off right away. The guy can sing. If you're ever doing a karaoke or a music event at your conference and you want a legitimate tech integration, tech person there that can actually own the room, he's that guy. He always does ed tech karaoke at ISTE. He's always one of the probably the top 3 that's on that stage. He's that good, but that humble too. I just did this at his school, and we had it all set up for sound system, and he sang there, Don't Stop Believing at the end. And it was just this nice moment. He's good people. He also helped my son write his book, because my son gave chapters to Butch, who is an amazing writer, and he gave him pointers and really bonded with Ben as he wrote Bleak. So I'm grateful for him for being
He's an outstanding writer. It was very insightful, really authentic and raw stuff. I've been writing books and stories for ages and ages and ages. Quick plug, ifoundaknife.com will get you links to some of my stories and a couple of old books. The pieces of a 6-book series that actually managed to come out. Anyway, thank you. Yeah, I've been in ed tech since 2000. Actually, this week. Tomorrow would be 22 years. Yay.
Oh.
And worked with the state of Illinois, worked up and down the state. I was one of the earliest Google trainers. If you're a Google trainer, my number's in the 400s. You'd be Skippy. And worked with standardized testing, supporting statewide testing. I did the app for the Illinois Science Assessment that they're still using. So yeah, you know. But my joy, and just like we're meeting Kevin and meeting Brad for that matter, I've done tech support for all these conferences across the state, and you're always seeing fire in somebody's eyes, and you're always seeing somebody who can not just capture the room, but then motivate them out the door so that good stuff comes from it. Watching Brad light people up at ice at what was Berwyn?
Yeah, Berwyn.
Yeah,
Yep.
Berwyn was cool, right? And
Yep.
and capturing in terms of AR, VR stuff, things of that nature. And then I mean, Kevin just owns a room and leads souls. I don't want to get too spiritual about this, but the fact of the matter is that this last, and it goes to the topic of this conversation. This last session that we did, the Not Running Conference has been going on for 44 years. We hosted here at the high school. There's a room of 1,300 educators, and they've all got the same hole in their purpose due to COVID and due to the side effects of COVID. They need to feel valued. They need to feel motivated. They need to feel worthy again. And Kevin brought that, and that was awesome. That not just me saying it, that's the feedback I got from people. Yeah, you know, he's doing this re-believe thing right now, and yeah, that's pretty much on point.
Thanks, Butch. Means the world.
So Kevin, what is the re-believe? What's the message?
Well, everywhere I go, they think they want pedagogy. They think they want certain things. And what it always comes down to at the last minute is they say, forget all of that. Just make our teachers re-believe in education. So I wrote that down and said, okay, that's the most important. By the way, that's been 90% of what I do my whole career anyway. But now I get to turn the volume up and stop getting granular about things that don't matter yet. Until our teachers feel whole again, their kids won't feel whole again. And so there's this healing, and we talk about self-care, but no one really identifies what that really means. But I think the beginning of that is saying, I see you and I love you, and thank you for picking this career that's all about helping kids find their way. I mean, that's really everyone in this lineup right here. That's really who you are. That's why I love you guys. Because it's like a magnet collects its own magnets, its own kind of magnets, and that's what's going on here. So it's about that. And again, I'm going to Oklahoma Wednesday at Norman, and I'll be talking to K-20 educators, and it's the same thing. Again, just saying, why are we in this? And don't quit. It's going to get better, I promise. But the kids, you can't desert the kids. They need us. So that's it, Mitch.
That's pretty inspiring.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then I'm curious, why now? Why is, why does the message, resonate so much right now?
Let's go down the panel here and just see, start with Alefiya and kind of work our way to the left on the group up there.
Sure. So, Mitch, your question is why now in terms of the re-believe,
Right.
re-believe mantra, if you will. I think COVID is a big part of it for sure, but it's not just COVID. I think the realities of the political climate in this country, regardless of which side of anything that you're on, are more stressful.
One side is clearly wrong, right? Like if you disagree with me, you're just clearly wrong.
It's very stressful, right? And those politics are seeping into the school building in such a insidious way. I mean, you talk about, banning books, you talk about, what parents can do or not do, what teachers can say or not say. And it's just so many, right? There's a million examples of these things. So I think COVID is a big part of it. Politics, the unhealthy politics that are seeping into our schools, and things as basic and, I will say, publicly infuriating as the school shootings that are happening every day, every week, right? And things like that just they rock our profession at a very deep level. And it's a lot of these things have been happening, yes, for ever, but I think the last 3 or 4 years specifically, a lot of this has kind of all come to a head in a kind of a tsunami of a beep storm. And so it is, all of those reasons are why we as educators are fatigued. We're tired, we're exhausted. A lot of us are forgetting why we do what we do. We're forgetting the passion behind, the reason behind why we're in the classroom. And so I think there couldn't be a more important time for Rebelieve. But those are just, the three big ones I know are all coming together at the moment.
So, I read in the papers, and Alefiya, you can answer this, but somebody else can too, that, the problems basically will go away if we just take care of the learning gap, right? Isn't that all? We don't have to worry about, this, Rebelieve. We just have to take care of the learning gap, right? Right, Brad?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I'll tell you what from what Alefiya said already is, here is one of the results that I have seen, due to everything that was just mentioned. And this is part of why the We Believe and We Can is still so strong and very much needed right now, is because right now we are at a point where parents, our clients, feel like they can say whatever they want, and they take these bold liberties right now to say things. And what happens is your faculty is in one of two camps. Either the teacher is getting this brunt and is not being protected by an administrator right now because the administrator is not sure on how to handle it, and then the teachers get the brunt. Or you have an administrator like a principal or superintendent who you come to me, filter things through me, I will protect my teachers. So either way, and then the administrator gets the brunt of that. I became a teacher in '99. My wife was a teacher for a long time. She's a principal right now. And, we have this conversation all the time about, just in the last few years, we are amazed what parents will actually say to us. Like think that it's okay to say things. This is also the only industry where our clients, our parents basically, will come in with advice and think they know better than we as professionals, we who went to school, we who have educational degrees, who have multiple higher education degrees. We don't go into a doctor's office to say, you sure you don't want to stitch that a little closer, so I do think that the We Can and the We Believe it resonates with people right now. I do a lot of that. Mine's around technology stories, but at the end of the day, what Kevin said is true. Everybody, no matter where I go as well to do keynotes or professional development, they just want the staff and the teachers to feel like they're supported, they're heard, and that we appreciate them being here like a frontline worker.
I know, Randy, I think you're unmuted, so.
Yeah, so just to throw an additional factor that's out there, I do think that with the work we've done since No Child Left Behind, et cetera, I started teaching in 1985 and I was a curriculum director for a large school district in Minnesota for many years, not long after that. And we've really gone down a path of deficit thinking in that we're so focused on results, quantifiable results in a narrow channel. We start looking at people. We start looking at children as what's wrong with this child, this deficit thinking that comes along with a test score. What's wrong with this kiddo? And I think what's happening is that's kind of permeating through the whole system. It's what's wrong with the system, what's wrong with the child, what's wrong with the administrator, and everyone is caught up in this. We're bad. We are bad because there's something wrong at every single level. And I think that's a result of 3 decades now, almost 4 decades of just pounding and pounding and pounding on a narrow set of data saying, yeah, there is something wrong. It's wrong with kids. It's wrong with the whole system. And that's one of the reasons I think I would agree with, I think, what others have said here. And that is that it maybe has always been the right time, but it is the perfect time right now, I think, to be really focusing on the goodness part. Without that, we're human beings, and without that, when we're not seeing children for being human beings, and the parents for being human beings, et cetera, it's a long road to hoe, I think, for educators. So I think it's a great topic. It's a great angle and very necessary one right now.
And I'm getting the feeling that COVID really shone a light on these issues that existed before, but we were able to somehow or other cover them up to a certain extent, because we had the system that was ongoing, and the kids became compliant, and the teachers became compliant, and the administrators became compliant. And then that kind of broke a little bit in COVID. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, this, our whole focus, is not people oriented, it's numbers oriented. And I'm
Right.
Butch. You're muted, Butch. Or maybe you just don't have anything to say.
No, I was muted because there's a copier going next to me. I've
Okay.
got,
Okay.
we're at 3:15, 3:20, and teachers are copying and making copies for tomorrow. So yeah, focus was one of the things that came up a couple of different times in the last few minutes. And it is, to me, the fact that our focus got shifted because of the demands around COVID and the helter-skelter variety of guidance and administration at the state level, at the federal level, that we all got to adapt to on the fly. I mean, I know that, for example, here in Illinois, the state's attendance policy changed 3 times in less than 2 weeks as we all dropped into COVID management. I mean, just the attendance policy, just how we're going to count these kids and when we're going to count these kids. So yeah, that really, the fire's in front of you, take your focus. And as a result of that, we lost focus on the kids and the long-term version of these students. We were focused on getting them through this week and then this month, as opposed to what they were going to be 4 years down the road.
Or when they're adults.
Which
is really what we're supposed to be,
Right, exactly. And there's also that trying to figure out a nice way to say this. There's so much to this. Okay, so we're talking, Brad's talking about, yeah, absolutely. We're getting parents who are saying things. Others, you guys are saying, we're getting parents who are just perfectly free to say these things that they would not have said 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. 3 years ago, and it's not just us. It's not just education. The internet brought them Doctorpedia, WebMD, and so they walk into doctors' offices and say, "I gotta, Tuma," right? That stuff. But then COVID comes along, and like we were talking at early back when we first started talking, the idea of as we get older, our number of friends get smaller. Well, COVID came along, locked us all in our house, and our number of friends got vastly larger and impersonal and echo chambering. So we're convinced that 25 people on Reddit liked what I had to say. It must be true. I'm going to take this to my teacher and hammer them with it. We loss of face-to-face probably cost us some civility. And if we weren't critical thinkers going into it, okay, so I'm over here in a corner and I'm Googling you guys and picking pieces of this, that, and the other. And Mitch, last June, you said something really bright.
Me?
Yes, you, about expecting better results if we teach how to think and learn.
Right.
And how to think and learn got casual in the 50s and 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
We assumed everybody knew this because we learned it in school. And no, we have it's one of those fundamental things about teaching that we managed to forget. Got a different audience now.
Right.
Different group of kids, different group of teachers.
Mhm.
I mean, I've worked with schools up and down the state, and working with administrations, inevitably, at some point in time, you run into this. You do realize that the teachers that you're talking about aren't the same ones you had 5 years ago. Even if half of them are, not all of them are.
Right.
So yeah, I think there's some fundamental things there that are non-digital that we've got to relearn and
Mhm.
come to re-believe, if you will. Slide a little plug in there for you.
Nice segue. Yeah.
You bet.
Can I add one thing? We talked about data, right? And reports and reporting and grades and all of that. And that is always, I was a teacher for many years. I've got my Montessori shirt on because I was a Montessori teacher. I love Montessori. And grades have always been hard for me. I get that they're needed, but as a teacher that loves what she does and wants to see the student grow and shine, report cards and grades are rarely the way to be able to show that or depict that or understand that. However, so Madeleine has been partnering with Dr. Joyce King, who's a phenomenal professor at Georgia State University, but she runs this program called Guardians of Heritage. And we have been doing a lot of work with them. And part of the program was kids in 20 different cities across the United States and in Brazil, learning about their cultural heritage and being able to create solutions to help engage communities more. One of the solutions was an app that kids came up with, all kinds of different app ideas. So we helped them with that. But in that conversation, some of the kids made truly phenomenal, came up with phenomenal ideas. One app name that I'll just share with you. It's not been published yet, but it is almost there. It's called Repper Nation. And it's a play on words talking about reparations, but repair our nation through some of those things, right? And just kind of understanding that and really deep research around, what, who, how, when, why, all of that. But all of that to say, they just introduced us to this company and product that I think is phenomenal. It's called My Reality, and I'll put it in the chat. MI Reality. I think also reality with an I. But they are looking at, and we just spoke with them yesterday, and Vaughn is the gentleman behind the organization, and he called it, regular dry, boring data, which is typically what we get, versus structured inquiries and more rich data and understanding around something, and just thinking about how we need to have data in education, but kind of pie in the sky, crazy. Someday, could we get to a place where the kinds of data that we're looking at are much more representative of the kids that we have, as opposed to numbers on a spreadsheet? And this particular program is trying to get there with different situations. I don't know if they're doing a lot of work in the education space or K-12 specifically or not, but just understanding a more holistic way of viewing the child, and how can that be something that we get to. But I'll be quiet.
No, it's such an important point, though. Like just because something is easy to measure doesn't mean that that's what we should be measuring, and that that's emblematic of what the kids are, right?
Right.
And that's what we've been doing, is we've been taking the things that were pretty much the easiest things to measure, and measuring those and saying that, that's who the kids are, and the teachers who don't achieve that are bad teachers, and so there's something wrong with them. But are we measuring empathy? Are we measuring the ability to collaborate? Could we? I don't even think that we could, right?
Yeah.
No.
I was working with a charter school in Emporia, Kansas, and working with a 5th grade girl. And the principal, one of the principals, he just got hired. He had never worked at a project-based learning school before. And he comes up to her, she's in the middle of a project, and says, "Hey, young lady, can I help you?" And she said, "What are you good at?" And he looked like the floor fell out from under him. He wasn't qualified to help her the way she's been taught to learn. or allowed to learn, say it that way.
Yeah, allowed to learn.
And one of the biggest things that we've struggled with is how do we assess? I think the system will always run back to the simplest form of assessments. They always will. Expediency will lead. I think trying to really gauge, and being in the education 30 plus years now, I've got kids who hit me on Instagram who are in their 30s. And I can tell if I did a good job or not by how they're doing in their life. You know what I mean? There's your assessment. You want to look at a long range assessment. Did they do okay with their life? And I can tell you, yes, the things that I did to support them emotionally while they became who they were meant to be mattered more than any test we ever gave that they forgot anyway. I'll stop.
I mean, one of the things that makes me nuts, and has since I got involved with this stuff, is that I've yet to run across a school that consistently reaches out to graduates 5 years out. How'd we do? How's your life? Give me a memory. This doesn't have to be a Google form. This doesn't have to be a Stantron thing. This is a conversation. And the one time I managed to get it done, it turned into some good feedback, some quality feedback, but it also turned into a couple of those people working with current kids to build, to be just to be an example, just to be that person that says, hey, they're not lying to you.
Well, Brad, as much as you've done with careers, you have to have seen this confluence between the reality of where a kid ends up and what they were prepared to do. I mean, what do you see there?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that, because where I've spent my time in the last 6 years now is the connection between industry and education, business and education. Because I was thrust into the business sector all of a sudden. And so I found myself getting into having good conversations with C-level executives, with HR departments and, middle management, and asking, what do you look for in an employee? What makes a successful team member and stuff? And it's so fascinating because they're not saying, well, we look at their SAT scores. I mean, this is all valuable. So I don't want to say the data is not in the testing. They're like, can they adapt? Can they bring their knowledge of what they learned in school to a new environment and adapt to it? Can they work with the team? Can they communicate when when they have to either discuss a problem, discuss something that came up? Can they work on, goal setting and accomplish it with other people? There was so much of the soft skills and, intangibles and things that Mitch was talking about, like, can we, track data on some of this? Some of it we can't. And one of the most fascinating things I found out was, to me, it felt like there's a big disconnect between industry and education. And so that's what I've been trying to stitch together and repair for the last 5 years, is asking all the people who are in industry, what are you looking for? What do you need? What do we do a good job? What do we do? What do we need to do better? And then going to educators. And that's where my Industry 4.0 program is coming from, is kind of basically, it's almost like a semi-scope and sequence between K-12. What are the big pictures? What are the soft skills that they're looking for? How does this translate into, being a productive member of society and stuff? And it's, just to what you were just talking about, Butch, is that personal connection. It really is. My guess is, if you were to make these phone calls to graduates 5 years out, I bet one of the things you would hear, a very common theme, was Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so was really good to me. I was having a bad day and they listened to me. They saw me. I felt like a person. My guess is you would hear a lot more of that. And so that personal connection and human element has always been there. But I feel like, from what a lot of people said, that disconnect between COVID and virtual learning and stuff. We've kind of missed out on some of that. And so that need to connect as humans is really strong again. And that's part of the path we're on to, moving forward and repairing some of this, unintended, collateral damage, if you will. So, so that's what I'm seeing in industry and education. And, it's a fascinating world, and I love trying to bridge that gap a little.
That is fascinating. I'm also thinking, if we're trying to build these skills, Brad, that you brought up in terms of the skills that are really going to make great adults out of kids, collaboration, empathy, ability to solve problems, ability to think for themselves. Is that even possible if teachers aren't having fun teaching? And if not, then what could, if I'm a teacher and I'm not having fun teaching, are there things that I could be doing to make sure that, every week I'm devoting a certain amount of time to having fun?
Well, that's a couple good points. If you're not having fun or even enjoying your job, it's going to be much harder already. That's going to be one thing. The second thing is all classroom teachers will tell us, it really comes down to their leadership, who is in their building, who's leading the way, whether it's the principal or the superintendent. We've all had good ones. We've all had ones that we wish, had a different lens or whatever. So the importance of having a good leader, with a good leader with vision, and a lot of that is vision and communication and support. I think those are three key elements that a good leader can get so much out of a staff if they have that to support the teachers. And if the teacher feels that, then they can do so much more, to your point.
So Randy, I watched you be an educational leader in a big system with a lot of diversity between schools. I mean, literally, it covered all this geography. And the schools had different socioeconomic realities and different realities in terms of different cultures that they were coming from. And you were at the helm of all of that. How did you inspire kind of engaged, instructors across such a diverse landscape?
Yeah, I'm not so certain that I did, but I really tried to do that. And one of the things that I did frequently is I did my own little podcast that I did not make available on the web per se in a public domain, but about every other Friday I would send out to all the staff a 5 to 10 minute discussion, not a discussion, but some statements about here's what we're doing. Here's how we're going. Here's what I hear from parents, and everything is positive. I never share anything that I hear from parents who are upset, but but I'll just say here's what's going on, and I always come back to our role is to ensure that we're establishing and creating and keeping in place the common good for our community. That's what we're about. That's why we're here. And every single child, we're having an impact on every single child. And so, that's one of the things that I did, is just try to get my voice out there because we had just about 20 buildings in the district. And it just, there would be 2 or 3 months that would go by before I'd get maybe in a building, in the same building twice. And so I really depended on some of the technology and the way to just get those pieces out there. I think we're helpful for the staff anyway, because they would tell me how much they appreciate that, because sometimes they weren't seeing their principal enough to hear some of the same things. And so that's some of the feedback I gave them.
I gotta put one more thing in here, Randy, and probably why we're going to still be friends the rest of our lives, is you said big, bold, brave things in these podcasts. And I wanted you to put it out nationally, but I realized it probably would have gotten you killed locally. I get it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you said things that I never heard anyone be that brave. And I saw you in a meeting getting, let's say, tested, I'd say, not quite attacked by somebody. And they weren't saying you were wrong. They wanted exactly what they wanted. And you can't do that. You have to see what everyone needs and do something in the middle. And right now we're living in these politically charged times where you can be crucified for doing the right thing if they frame it wrong. And so to be brave in that condition, and I watch the people well-meaning people who were taking you on in that meeting, I get why they want what they want, but they're so extreme because they've been fighting so long and biting so long that they've almost lost their ability to be nuanced, to get what they want by not beating somebody to death. But you handled that like it didn't even phase you, and it probably did on some level at your core. But what I admire is that here's an educational leader who's doing the most good for the most people without dying or feeling like you have to, give up because you can't do everything for everyone. And that's not easy. I know that.
Well, and I thank you, Kevin. That's very, very nice of you to, I don't remember that conversation. It probably happened several times in my career. But one of the things that I strongly believe is that as we talk about equity and what's really important is that we were a school district that really focused on having a lot of choices for kids. And I wanted to make sure, and this is one of the reasons we had Kevin there, was to help us with our choices and validate our teachers, validate our students with those choices and the things of doing it. And to me, in the most equitable fashion possible, every single child would have their own pathway through school, and it wouldn't have to look the same. And in the most ideal sense, we wouldn't have a system where we put 25 and 30 kids into a classroom and run it like it's, we're making cars. I mean, we got to get out of that mode. We have the wherewithal to do it. I'm not so sure that we have the intestinal fortitude to really make strides in that direction. But I just strongly believe that that's where things have to move. The industrial model is something we've got to get ourselves away from.
Yeah, Butch, we haven't heard from you in a while, and we've been talking about a wide variety of topics in terms of measurement and preparing kids for adulthood and leadership. As you're listening to this, what are your thoughts?
Measurement's a fascinating thing. Okay, I need to go back. I'm an Air Force brat. I was raised, my dad was Air Force, raised in a variety of places. West Texas, Alaska. I graduated from high school on Okinawa. And I was also Navy for 8 years. One of the measurement things, and one of the measurement things that happens in the military happens in K-12 education, particularly in bureaucracy-driven educations. We will measure, and then we will measure again, and then we will reformat, and we will measure again, and we will keep measuring until we get the results that we actually wanted. Not the results that are right, but the results that we actually wanted. And some of that is business bent, and some of that is bureaucracy bent.
So this learning gap could go away, right, if we just change the measurement a little bit.
I think the learning gap could go away if we change the expectations. We don't. Okay, if I could rebuild everything from ground up, no kid gets socially advanced. No kid gets age advanced. You don't push this kid deeper into stuff they don't understand. You're going to hang out right here until you've mastered these things to the best of your ability, and then we'll move you on. And you'll get the most out of this period of school that you can, with learning being the expectation, not being a fallback being the expectation, not going to college being the expectation, not going to college or trade school or whatever else, not doing this employment opportunity being the expectation. We're going to get you some basic skills, and when you've got those basic skills, then we're going to move you on to the next level of skills.
So competency or mastery based.
Mastery based, individually mastery based.
There you go.
Because, and at the same time, this gives them the ability to rise in social skills to rise in communication skills, even as they're mastering this level of math. It's not you're locked down to your lowest capability. You're not forced out because of your highest capability. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is it a pipe dream?
Yeah.
Yes. You know, I mean, one of the things that interests me as we're looking at COVID is they're talking about, you know, the attendance thing. Kids are going to pass. We've got to move them on, because if we don't, we have no place to put them. You know, we have to move these kids out of here because there's a ninth. You know, I'm at a high school. We have to move these seniors out of here because there's a ninth grade class coming in. Whether they're ready or not, they're coming in. We don't have a place to put them. That's a practical reality that had never occurred to me until COVID. Yeah, a complete divergence. Apologies.
No, listen, one of the things that you made me think about is that my fear in the way we've done things with school for 100+ years is that we don't give kids enough exposure to things that might interest them. And when you teach the arts, or you teach coding as Alefiya does, or you bring technology into schools as Brad does, and as Mitch does, you see kids, raise your hand if you've ever seen a kid light up for the first time in their life over something they're just finding out today. Raise your hand. That moment of, oh my God, I might be good at this. My fear is that we don't have enough of that in public school. There's not this wonderful opportunity, this carousel of choices that kids get to look at, try on. I don't mean for 9 weeks at a time. I mean, try on for a week, try on for a day, try on for an hour. Speed dating with possibility. I'll stop there and see where that takes us.
Hang on. I want to go right back through exactly what you said and replace the word kid with teacher. Because Brad, you know, Kevin, you know, you folks know, when you're working with a teacher and you see that aha moment pop, and I'm really hot on this right now because I had that happen about 2 hours ago, with a teacher who's coming in. He's being dropped in to teach a class because we have a reservist who got shipped out. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same joy, and it's the same hook that leads to learning for that individual.
I would just add the Butch, you talked about the competency based, right? I do find myself thinking though, and this, Brad, you mentioned this earlier, what do companies look at? What do companies value, right? When we are interviewing candidates to join our team, do we ever look at where they went to school or what their GPA was? And the answer is no, we don't, right? We look at their—
Wait a minute, that's on their permanent record. I mean, you know, like it's on the permanent record. So, you know, what do you mean you don't look at it?
I've said it publicly, it is there. But it is,
yeah, I don't like spinach was on my permanent record. It doesn't apply anymore.
Right. But we look at the experiences they've had, right? The things that they've done that have brought them joy and excitement and have inspired them. And that comes through in conversation. Yes, it comes through sometimes in a resume. Depending on how you're interviewing, it comes through in different ways. But that's really what, we talked about joy, and for teachers, for sure, for kids, 100%. Opportunities to have more of those experiences. You said speed dating with possibilities, Kevin. I wrote it down because I absolutely love that. And it is, we need to have our kids exposed to absolutely everything we can expose them to, so they can figure out what's their thing and what's not their thing. I would argue the purpose of school is as much as, if not more, to figure out what's not for you and what's not your thing, in addition to figuring out what is your thing, right? And what are the things that you're really drawn to and that you're interested in. But knowing what's not your thing is also very important. And so how do we do that? How do we bring all these rich opportunities to kids in a way that can fit within a 45-minute class time, can fit within a report card structure, a grade structure, a need to advance to the next level, all of those things. And that's what we're really trying to to help, just with our work at MadLearn. It's, one of the things that we do is we do interns. We have middle school and high school interns that are virtually interning with us, 30 to 40 kids every year. Our team is a global team. So this is our office. This is what our office looks like. We're on Zoom, we're working from wherever we are. But the kids get to see that too. They get to see team members in 3 different countries and 5 different states. They get to see what our weekly team meetings are like and what Slack is like and what weekly reporting is like. And they get to do real work. There's no making coffee and making copies because that just does not exist at our company. And so, not to say we don't like coffee, but, that is there. If they're coming on to work with us, it's very clear that their interests and skills align with needs that we have. And so we're creating projects that they can do in a meaningful way. And we have kids that have designed real images and animations and curriculum that is a part of our product today. So they have not only the fact that they made an app on their resume, but also the fact that they created this part of this product that's now being used by 40,000 kids. That's the kind of thing that we need to have more of. We're one small company that's serving 30 to 40 kids every year. We need to have every company, every business that you can think of that is offering internships, either in person or virtually, to kids, not just university, not just college and undergrad kids, but high school kids and middle school kids. And how do we do that and really expose our kids to so much more? Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, there's moments that I want people to see. So I want, if you could drop a hard link on us of where people could go see. And I'm not just trying to brag on what you're doing. I want to brag on what your kids have done with what you're doing. Some of the feature apps that kids come up with. And I love it when they come up with something. And a lot of times these kids want to save the world when actually someone needs to save them. And it's beautiful. I always say the best way out of darkness is to make your own light. And one of the things that's had me working with you all through the pandemic was the inspiration that came from watching what kids invented. And you have one thing, and like you say, I want kids to be able to do this in lots of realms, from visual arts to music to poetry to writing. Yes, of course, to coding. Of course, that's such a pertinent, career pathway in our world today. But where would a person go to see some of that, to be inspired?
Yeah, so one easy way is pull out your phone and go to the App Store, go to the Google Play Store and download this app called Mad Store, MAD Store. It's our version of the App Store. Any app that a student makes, they can instantly see through that Mad Store app. The ones that you'll see are published. They've gone through many levels of approval to be public, but there's hundreds of thousands of other ones behind the scenes that you can't see unless you have that access code. Kevin made an app, for example. I don't know if your app is published or not, Kevin, but if it's not, if you have his code, you can look at his app. But if it's published, it's on there and available for you to see. So that's a place to just, see some of the things that kids have done. But I mean, this happens because of teachers, right? And I will always, again, teacher right here, I will always come back to the importance of focusing on our teachers. And this is something we say and we sometimes get in trouble for, but our primary focus and goal at our company is our teachers. It's not school admin, it's not district admin, it's not even the kids. It is our teachers. Everything that we build and that we do and that we service and support is for our teachers, because we know if we can get them believing and seeing and excited and engaged, the kids are going to get it. They will get access, they will get, have that experience. But we have to focus on our teachers and reinvigorate our teachers in a big way, because the exodus that we're seeing now is horrific. And I'm worried it's only going to get worse before it starts to get better. And how do we address that, right? How do we address the fact that teachers are leaving in droves? And all of us are here because we have, we've been in education, we are in education in different ways, but none of us are actively in the classroom at this moment. And that it's just, it's a big nut, and it's stuff we need to talk about.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. So I'm thinking we're coming up to the hour, and maybe we should go around the room and kind of have a closing statement. I was thinking of kind of a prompt, okay? And the prompt being, this is going to be a great year because,
Nice.
okay? So, I don't know. I'm just looking at my, my list, and Butch, you're first on my list. So, yeah, you go first. This is going to be a great year because.
Okay, this is personal to my situation. I've been in this school now for 2 years. We all know that it takes a long time to move a ship, to turn a ship. The ship is starting to turn. The door is always open and people are using it. I spent 2.5 hours, I spent less, little than 2 hours, 2 class periods, working with a teacher, bringing them up to speed with the rest of their colleagues. And they reached out to me. So I'm getting that interest. I'm getting that opportunity to one-on-one small group show folks the kind of things I've been talking about for 2 years since I got here. But it's starting to take hold. And that's going to make it a great year.
Great. Thank you. Randy?
I think what's going to make it a great year is that despite the adversity, despite the fact that we still feel like we've got a kind of a COVID hangover, who knows how long that's going to be with us. I remain heartened, even 2.5 years past my retirement here, the fact that we still have outstanding educators in our classrooms, and we still have kids there who need their support, and they're supporting kids. And I have a lot of strong feelings that the common good, why we do things, why we're here, why we've become educators, become involved in education, means that there's a common good. And I just believe that there's some clarity that's going to come back to us in this common good in the next year, if we haven't felt that happening already. A part of it might be what Kevin's doing and messages that he's bringing, but we're all bringing those messages, and that's what I think I'm looking forward to here in this next year.
Beautiful. Thank you. Brad? And you're muted, Brad.
Because the world's opening back, it's nice to back out person virtual. Like,
So Brad, I think you have a bad connection.
Hey Brad, if you can hear me, kill your video.
Yeah, there. Is there?
Oops. Oh, we lost. Darn. Hopefully Brad can come back.
Video, not the whole thing, just the video.
Alefiya, this is going to be a great year because?
I think it's going to be a great year because we're seeing, and we're going to continue to see, teachers unshackle and unsee or see differently the views of themselves and their abilities. I think that we have hundreds of teachers like this that we get to work with on a pretty regular basis, but we've seen more and more teachers that are saying, hey, I'm going to do that differently, or I've always done it this way, but I really don't want to do that anymore, or help me with a new idea for this. And that unthinking or rethinking, I think is going to be really powerful across the board. And again, we've had a lot of shots that have come at us and hit us in different ways to kind of maybe inspire that. But I think it's going to be a great year because of that. And speaking of the unshackling or the re-seeing in a different way, we just personally, again, at MadLearn, we're doing in just a couple weeks, we have a whole new MadLearn coming out,
Really?
which is entirely integrated 6-step design thinking process into our app development program. Nothing like it exists. It's going to be amazing, completely based on teacher and student feedback. And we're really excited about it. So
That's very exciting. Yeah.
It's
Well,
gonna be a great year.
congratulations. Yeah. So Kevin, I'm going to ask you to go last. I'm going to go before you because I'm going to ask you to like sum everything up. And I was thinking, it's going to be a great year. The first step towards improvement is realizing that something is wrong. And then you get into like conscious competence. We've already gotten through that first step. And I'm looking at really the next 2 or 3 years as this rocket that as we just get better and better. And so we've been at the bottom the last couple of years, and this next year is going to be really good, and the year after that is going to be even better because we're just figuring out what we need to do to be better. And Kevin.
Well, a lot of good things have been said, and I want to say just express personal gratitude for just getting to be part of this conversation. And also, I know you all recognize that Mitch is just the ultimate sort of sage when it comes to sort of pulling a conversation together and being funny, and just grateful to know all of you. The thing that I see everywhere I go is that teachers, they want to do the very best they can. I've never met, a teacher who has a bad motive. They want to do the best they can, but I feel like we've been tested like never before. I'm part of this thing called Wild Heart Teacher Camps, where teachers pay $50 and they come out to Divide, Colorado, and spend 2.5 days healing. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And they write down a list of all the things that the last 2 years has taken from them. And a lot of times it's almost always the same thing: their moxie, their belief, their thing, their spirit, their vibe. They call it different things, but they're crying when they write it down. And so the second night of the camp, we take that list and we talk to each other about what we feel we've lost and why we feel we're going to have the best year ever. Just what you said, Mitch. And then they ball it up and they throw it in the fire and they let it go. They let it go. And I think that's where we are now. Before you can clear a path for new learning, you've got to let go of the scar tissue, the perceived victimization. And there's been a lot. There's a lot. But I have watched teachers heal, and I have watched them help each other heal. And I believe in the kind of people who become educators. I love these people. You guys know what I'm talking about. They do the very best they can, and they inspire you to do your job better. So there's my long answer to a short question.
No, thank you. And, thank you all. I really enjoyed, conversing with you and discussing and to a small extent disagreeing, although I think we all have this very similar visions of where we need to go. And we'll see you all online, and maybe now that COVID is done, maybe in person, hopefully. So have a good evening,
Thank you very
everybody.
much, folks.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for inviting me. This was wonderful. Thanks,
It was
Kevin.
great.
Good to see you all.
It was very motivating. Thank you a lot.
Yeah.
Good.